Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to have you here today. I want to make this an informative session for you. Now, at the end, I'm definitely going to end the recording so we can have a little bit more conversation so you can unmute yourself, because I know that there'll be some questions that I'd like you to be able to unmute yourself and answer. So what we'll cover today is we're going to cover why cybersecurity matters. We're going to talk about the threat landscape this year. We're going to talk about AI, you and your staff and your organization. And we're going to talk about how we mitigate those risks along with Q&A. Now, I've been in cyber since 2008, and I've seen it evolve quite a bit over the years. And in this last year, I've seen it rapidly change. And it's really a lot to take in, and it's a lot to manage, and it's a lot to understand. So today I will try to make it as informative as possible for you, give you lots of takeaways, lots of action items, and not all of them are going to break the bank. Now, I understand you all are going to be somewhat resource limited, especially with the area of expertise. So I want you to know this session is about understanding how you can leverage what you have access to, and then also to find support, because again, doing this outside of just you is really important. Cybersecurity isn't a one-man show. It's really important you understand you have to go look for support elsewhere and you have to bring in resources. So I have a poll for you, a question, and I want to know why you have attended this session today. What is one of your top cybersecurity concerns right now as you come in and join me today to learn more about how to navigate these risks? Feel free to fill in this poll and we'll chat about that. I just want to have some ideas and then I'll be able to make sure I target those topics as well. So feel free to enter in your comments in the poll. Love to hear your feedback. Again, this is anonymous and private. You will see that nothing will come up that will be stating anything about you. So you're safe to enter information here.
I can read those out for you, Sonia, as they come in, if you like.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah. So I saw phishing attempts, phishing emails, new threats. So I'm assuming threats that maybe we weren't previously aware of, threats to my organization, best practices, day-to-day breaches, and privacy concerns, personal information.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Attack and breach, data security. Yeah, that looks. Oh, client privacy, cyber attacks, links or attachments.
Okay.
Concerns about links or attachments. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yep. Excellent. Thank you for your input. I appreciate that. Well, let's talk about all of those. So I would have to let you know, first of all, that one of the things that you should be concerned as a manager, as a leader, or anyone that's overseeing a team, doesn't matter how large your team is either. It could be a person of 1, 2, or 1,000, doesn't matter. What we need to know that for cybersecurity, your biggest concern is the fact that the goal for our criminals out there that are coming against us globally is their goal is to attack your data. They want to steal your, we call it crown jewels, the data that you work with every day. And so when we were talking about privacy, PII, it's called personally identifiable information. That's information that identifies anyone, your client, your staff, or you in individual ways, whether it's your IP address, your full name, your address, your email address, your banking information, health records, financial records, you name it. All of that is PII, and that's considered private data. And that data is considered crown jewels, along with anything that you have that's proprietary, whether you're a law firm, whether you're a construction firm, whether you're a health clinic, it doesn't matter. You're handling private data every day. Now, what you may not realize is your staff might not know what data they're handling that is private. I've had clients who've asked me if employee numbers were considered PII, and they are. Yeah, they are. And so with that, you have to understand, we have to be able to get on the same page with our staff so they understand it's the data they're touching. That's the valuable asset in your organization, not your firewall, not your computer, not the laptop. I mean, obviously those are valuable as well, but it's the data. So then let's think about where you're handling the data. Well, everywhere. You have it on cloud. How many organizations do you use as a supplier for the cloud services you need to do every day? How about on the on-premise if you have servers, right? So you have data in different locations, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of data you're handling every day, each and every one of your staff as well. So what we have here is we also have an identity crisis because the people on your team are the ones accessing that data. So they are the access point to your organization, because without their access, they wouldn't touch that data or need to. So you have to understand they're the target every day as well, because they have means to get to the data that is private, confidential, proprietary, valuable to your organization and to your clients, therefore valuable to our threat actors, hackers, you name it. Now, I'm going to say, if you could leave this session today with the thinking of it's us against them, which is the threat actors, the hackers, I would say you would build a little bit more of an inclusive culture within your organization just from that alone, because your staff are being overwhelmed right now and they're not sure who that threat actor is, who that enemy is, who that person is targeting them. Like, they can't figure that out. And it's really elusive in so many ways because it's like a shell game. The threat actor out there is changing all the time. There's too many different types of threat actors, and I could spend an hour just talking about those different type of threat actors. I'll talk a little bit about them, but at the end of the day, you don't need to be an expert on those kind of criminals. I consider them criminals, terrorists, because they are going to stop at no ends to be able to attack your organization, regardless of your size, to be able to get what they want for the reasons they want. But now what they do, which is easy for them and common for us, is because we use email every day, business email compromise is one of the most sophisticated, common methods of targeting your organization because we all use email, right? And so that hasn't changed in all of the years of us tracking the stats of what cyber criminals are using and doing and targeting and how they're getting into organizations. It is email. And that hasn't changed. And so 75% of those targeted attacks begin with email. So that's a high percentage. So if that number isn't going down, we have to look at that with real confidence to understand that means that's happening to our organization. So you have organizations like Smart Dolphins who possibly support you and have set up your network to protect you from email scams and do some filtering for you, email filtering. However, with the development of AI, with the development of new attack vectors and how sophisticated these criminals are and how often they're changing their tactics, we are constantly in this trying to stay ahead of what a cyber criminal is doing today and then changing, protecting the system, and then them changing, and it's continually evolving. So I'm really glad you're here today because we can continually bring this conversation to the forefront, talk about what those tactics are, and then understand how to bring those into your workplace so you can target those and understand that's what you have to be able to defend against. And then your staff are also being targeted via their mobile phone. How many of you are getting incoming texts at least once a day from somebody you don't know? Right? Put up your hand. I am. Some of them are even shadow, where they are actually from an organization that you do know, that you do use. So I give you an example of a text that I got. Well, I don't even know what Binance is, but I got this incoming text. Now I want to bring your attention to this because not only is it an incoming verification code that came to my phone number, but I don't even know what it is. So obviously I deleted it, but I want you to know that what if it was from an organization and a vendor you did use and your staff saw this incoming? What is interesting here, I want you all to be aware of, is that it is putting another method of targeting you within that text. And it says, you did not request this code, call us. Now there's sometimes even putting a link in there. So if your staff aren't aware of what's actually happening through these methods, they're going to be vulnerable to that. So we have to be able to understand that we have to equip our staff to see these different means of pretty much social engineering each and every different individual through these different means. So because incoming texts are now a new method, and they're becoming more and more common, we're getting phone calls, we're getting text messages, and all different types of tactics within those two methods, so that your staff aren't leaving the office and free from just only email targets, they're now getting it on their phone. And so we have to support each other by saying, okay, what are we going to do if, how do we navigate this? And talk about it openly to understand these are phishing scams, and we call them all different kinds of things. At the end of the day, you can call them a scam, and they have, you know, in our cyber world, we call them phishing, mishing, squishing, like all sorts of different tactics that we categorize. But at the end of the day, it's an unauthorized, targeted outreach to you to be able to target your staff to make them vulnerable to do what they want them to do without any awareness as to the actual motive at the other end. But you know, at the end of the day, it's about stealing your data one way or another. And they're going to be able to try to hook and bait individual people one way or another. And it could be really sly. And that's unfortunate because we're going to have to continually be on the ball. And this is one thing I really want to emphasize to you, is that we have to be aware that you're experiencing this and all of your staff are experiencing this. And it's exhausting. And I'm not going to say it's not. It's frustrating, 100%. It's overwhelming. So we have to be able to come united as an organization and face this together to go, okay, how many texts did you get today that you think are fake? Make it a simple conversation so that people go, oh yeah, I got 3 or I got 2, and making it a conversation so that they feel comfortable to say, yeah, I got that as well. Because the thing is what's going to happen is one of the times they're not going to know it's not real, right? So we need to be able to come around and support each other to say, this isn't going away, and it's getting creepier and creepier as we go along. And with AI coming in, it's getting more and more sophisticated and confusing. And so right now we want to be able to figure out a way to like declutter that information in a way so we can understand what to do. And again, these tactics are always changing. So now I want to be able to talk to you about the cost of this too, because these different type of threat actors are having a lot of success. And it's not going to change either. So obviously ransomware is the top cyber crime threat that's facing our organizations within Canada. And it's 18% increase year over year. But for small and medium organizations, 94% of small and medium businesses, SMBs, face cyber attacks in 2024. So that's up 73% from 2023. And only 42% reported cyber incidences in 2024. So those are still high numbers. And so what we have to see is that we know these cyber criminals are leveraging any method they can to get inside of your organization to steal your data because they're having success. And so we have to figure out a way to be able to stop those threat actors from getting inside your organization. Now, let's just take a look at some of the organizations that were targeted this last year. London Drugs was targeted. Toronto Public Library was targeted. First Nations Health Authority was targeted. Government of BC was targeted. So you can see there's all shapes and sizes of organizations that are targeted. And these main issues were ransomware attacks. So they were asked for money. The data was seized, or at least encrypted, we say, so it was locked down and no one could access it. That's why London Drugs had to close their doors for 10 days because they couldn't figure out what was infected. It's like a virus. They couldn't figure out where it was, what was infected, and they had to shut down all their stores to have forensic investigators come in to determine where it was, what it did, and what was lost. Now, obviously, at the same time, these threat actors, Lockbit, were negotiating, pay us money and we'll give you back your data. So 25 million was the ask. London Drugs refused to pay that, said we could pay you 8 million. And they said, too bad, we're not going to take it. And the negotiation ended. So what happened was they were like, we're going to reveal your data and sell it online. So you can see that there's an extortion there. These cyber criminals are going to be able to do whatever they want to do, however they want to do it, to be able to get money. And they're not going to get it from the organization. They're going to go sell it in the dark web. So if an organization has a cyber attack, you can rest assured they stole data, and you can rest assured it's being sold, regardless if that organization paid the ransom. So don't think just because that London Drugs, let's say, could pay it and would pay it, but they didn't. They lost data, and it was then publicly available. And it was HR records, but we don't totally know how many. That still will be disclosed over time. And then what will happen with those records, now we realize that puts those clients at another level of a risk. So you can see the domino effect of how that occurs, right? So all of these cyber breaches impact individuals inside of an organization, and it's the domino effect for every single one of those organizations, because it's not just London Drugs. It's the clients that were impacted within the organization, whoever did and used those services. And so they steal various different types of records, they steal various different amounts, and then they do with whatever they want with them in terms of the way they sell them. So at the end of the day, this is why we're having so many problems with our private data, is because it's being stolen and then resold and then reused. So that's credit cards, that's ID, that's any personal information that we have. So we're going to have new levels of being bombarded. That's why our credit cards are compromised. And you can notice that, how many of you have had to replace your credit card over the last year? I would say year, even sometimes even more than once a year, because our private data is being compromised so often. So we have so many different vulnerabilities in our own lives where it's hard to navigate how and where to stop it. Now, also, the global cost of a breach is 4.8 million in the last year, but that is also going up. Now, government entities are encouraging organizations not to pay ransom, but if you as an organization, you have to make that decision yourself. You have to determine if you've lost all that data and you need to pay that ransom to get that data back because you're literally, doors are shut and your team can't even log into any of your systems, you may be forced to have to pay that. But at the end of the day, what we have also found is you do not get your data back properly. It is distorted. It's not necessarily it doesn't come back clean. So then at the end of the day, you're finding you're not getting your data back the way it was stolen anyway. So then you pay for what reason? You're gonna have to start from scratch in one way or another. So we just advise not to, right? And so we want to be able to look at this and go, we have to figure out a way to kind of put like Fort Knox in our organization so we can prevent their entry. Now let's talk about AI. We call it the arms race, and it is upon us. So what should we do about it? We have an inundation of different information coming in about AI. We can now prove we can make anything fake, right? So if you look at this ID, obviously we know John Wick is not a real person with a real driver's license, but you can see it looks like a real driver's license, right? So that went around for a while, everyone trying to create fake licenses, because that's easy, right? So you used to have to go into the dark web to go buy a fake license. Now you can just do it yourself, right? There's fake videos. Now that Google has released the videos where they can make short videos, you can see examples of them making videos of like a newscaster with a shark swimming right behind them. So the only reason you know it's not real is because of the fact that the shark is right behind them. But the person as a newscaster looks very, very real. So we, with our own naked eye, can't determine what's real and what's not with AI as well. So we are up against the fact that we are using AI and it's being used against us. But I mean, I don't want to necessarily put fear of AI inside of this conversation. I want you to be aware of, we're going to use it as a tool for our business purposes, but we also have to equip our staff for the right purposes as well, so that they understand how to use it and how to use it properly inside your organization. Because of all the generative AI options you have to also understand you as an organization have to make a different choice, and you have to make a leadership choice as to which one you're going to use. It would be fair to say, if you haven't had that conversation yet, to have that as an organizational conversation, but leaders deciding which one you're allowing your teams to use and giving them that leverage. If you don't, they're going to anyway. So you might as well be open about it and discuss which one would be the best for your business, whether that's Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity. You know, as Apple's trying to buy Perplexity right now, you can see that these superpowers of AI are coming to the surface, and they're going to be bought out by these big companies so that they can stay on top of this arms race. So Apple's going to buy Perplexity so that they can have those AI capabilities, but there's all other avenues around AI capabilities, around software development, code, you name it, right? Every possible avenue is going to be using AI. But you as an organization, regardless of what size you have staff using AI, but you want them to be using it safely. So there's two fronts to AI. The risk of the deep fakes, that's going to be there. Now you're going to have to talk to your team about how you navigate when you're having incoming deep fakes. So deep fakes can come as social engineering. So it's going to come as fake emails, fake vendors saying, oh, did you pay this invoice? Here is the invoice details. Fake, 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 fake. How are they going to know that's fake? That's all AI, and they're not going to know it. You have to be able to talk to them about their verification process so they understand how they follow a secure business process to be able to navigate external communication coming into them, and then the process of which they document share and pay invoices and pay any staff member, for example. Because again, all of that incoming has to be assumed that it's going to be fake. Isn't that weird that we have to get to that we have to assume it's fake? It sounds really, really corrupt, but I would say you have to equip your staff with taking that on with a new lens. On the internal front of AI, you have to say as a team, how are you going to use it inside your organization? So for example, if you look at Outlook, Copilot's there. If you look at Word, Copilot's there. Now, depending on your license, Copilot could come in there and it can really obviously summarize all documents. It can rewrite documents. It can find an email inside of your email within seconds. It's going to really save time. However, that's data Copilot is gleaning and has access to. So do you want that? Can you afford to have that? Is that going to be safe for your organization to be able to use it for that reason? So you have to be able to determine what license do you have of Copilot, and what does it do with the data you use? The higher obviously the level of enterprise version you have, there are more options you have, and then there's a little bit more privacy involved in that. Less privacy with like a ChatGPT, obviously, than Perplexity. If you get your staff to put in health records into ChatGPT, it now just went to the abyss. It is now available for public. Anyone can see it, have it, and it's no longer private. You can't use ChatGPT for private information, but do all your staff know that? Maybe you don't have the right license for Copilot, then there has to be a clarification on what private information you're using Copilot for. But it's really always about the private information when it comes to your internal purposes of using these AIs, right? And the software. So again, this is a conversation that only you as an organization can decide what will be best for you. And again, this is for today. Obviously, I'm telling you information that's relevant today, and it could change in 2 months from now when Microsoft changes their Copilot services and options and privacy. And obviously, they're trying to make everything secure and with security in mind, but it doesn't mean they're always ahead of what the threat actor is trying to gain. So that's where we're at these AI arms race, because the threat actor is also using it for their gain, and the software companies are trying to develop it and then have to combat it back and forth over and over again. So as opposed to you being overwhelmed with what to do with the AI, just keep it in mind for those two fronts. How are you going to have staff understand and verify anything that's incoming? And how are you going to tell your staff what and where and how to navigate private information inside of that AI, those AI tools they're using? And only you can decide that as an organization, depending on what your purpose is and what your services are. Because every organization is going to have a different purpose, and it's okay, whatever that is. But having that conversation so that you're equipping everybody to be on the same page today. Again, it will change. And when it changes, you'll have another team meeting. You will discuss, okay, now let's do this because this is what is a better for our business outcome and reduces our business risk if we use it this way. We'll use this tool this way. We won't use this tool, and we won't use this tool, and please turn off this tool. Because again, it's always going to be about navigating and protecting your company data and your company privacy. Now, let's also talk about some other top recommendations to reduce risk to your organization. We're being bombarded. That's without a question. So you have to plan for when, not if. And you can't do this alone, right? So I would recommend that you bring in one of your team members to be one of your security champions, to go get them to do the research on key topics that you find that you need to tackle right now. And give them that. No one has to be an expert, but giving somebody the ability to go be that researcher, to find some information for you, to equip you, and then bringing that to the whole organization as a conversation piece. Now, I'm in this and I'm overwhelmed. And so you can trust the fact that no one's an expert on AI right now at all. And even as much as we're talking about it, no one is an expert. We're all grasping at trying to figure out what to do with it, when to use it, how to use it, and what to interpret as a big deal and not a big deal. So when we say arms race, it really is, because we're just talking about our country. Forget about what all the other countries are doing and whatever their purposes are for that particular tool. But when it comes to all the other software tools that you need to implement within your organization, you have to also decide. So with the strategies that I'm about to give you, take these notes and then determine where you'll start, but you give them to a team leader who will say, run with it, go find some information about this and share it back with me. And then we'll determine how to navigate this as an organization, right? So you have to build your security posture in small steps. Not going to happen overnight, not going to happen next week. So you have to be able to understand, we got to start with your data. Right? Review and improve your data management processes. If you don't know what they are, review them. And if you aren't happy with them, change them. And again, use your security champion to help do the legwork of some of this. What does that mean? How does that work? And if you don't understand it, that's a great place to start. 2, do a gap assessment. Figure out where your biggest gaps are. As an organization, what are your concerns and what do you think they are? But then go get some help so you can figure out what that gap assessment is, so you can know that you first and foremost have facts as to where your gaps are, not just guessing. And then you can determine your budget and you can determine plan of action. Okay, this will take 3 months. This will take 6 months. This will cost this much. We can budget that. We can't budget this. But being open about the fact that it is going to be a budget item, and it is going to be a resource item. There's no way around it. and then enforcing these policies, because you have to implement them for people to understand this is the way we do business now. We have to have a security-minded business now. It isn't just about offering law services, construction services, health services, education services. It's about how do you do it securely. Every organization has to put that on the forefront. Now, it doesn't have to be top dollar, but it has to be an effort, and you have to take strides in the right direction. So if you're going to start with anything, I would say find a way to make sure your data is backed up properly. There's 3 ways to back it up. Go find out where you're at and if you're doing it properly. And then making sure you test that. So that is your number one asset that you need to protect, and you have it backed up properly. And all of your leadership know that is properly backed up, so that if there's anything like an IT outage, even, you could back up and restore everything and be back in business within hours, not days and not weeks. I'm not sure if you know what data loss prevention is, right? But it's a cybersecurity solution that detects and prevents data breaches, but it blocks the extraction of sensitive data organizations use for internal security and regulatory compliance. You have to have, and I would recommend you do some research on this, because with AI coming in and the way our staff are using AI and the way we're sharing, inputting data, documents, and then getting it spitting out so it can refine the documentation we use, whatever those documents are, this is critical for your organization. So you understand. So for example, Meta, Facebook, just won a lawsuit because they were using resources for AI to be able to glean literature and use it for their, data to be able to determine prompts. So copywriting issues is basically what they were going to court over. And this is going to happen over and over and over again. But this means you have to protect your data on another level because of the AI scraping data, where it can scrape data if it's out there in the public. And again, you don't have to get too lost in the weeds there, but you have to understand that lawsuit that Meta won sets a precedence of it doesn't matter what copyright was out there, like, Huck Finn book. Now that data was scraped and is now used for AI capabilities and prompts, even though that author is no longer alive, but that book was that's copyright issues, but Meta won that. So you as an organization have to look at that differently. So I hope that doesn't overwhelm you, but it's just the way it is with AI right now. Now, your team, are they following document security best practices when it comes to document sharing? Or are they sharing like, oh, I'm going to give you this invoice and email it to you. Oh, I'm going to share you financial records and I'm going to email it to you. Obviously, you would have SharePoint, you share it using SharePoint, but are you encrypting data, or are you removing certain data points when you are sharing it with a team member who doesn't need access to that particular data? Again, we have to look at the way we're sharing that private confidential data internally as well. So what are your best practices for document sharing? Every size of an organization has this issue, and every size of organization has to determine their best practices. You have to have a mobile device management policy as well, because if you have a staff member that has access to all the data because they can just be able to, whether it's a bring your own device, they have their own, or you provide a device, you still have to understand they're collecting your organizational data on their phone if they're allowed to use their phone. What's your policy with that? What if they were, what if you had them leave your organization? How do you gain access to make sure that that data is removed from their phone? So you have to think outside of the box around closing out all of your accounts when a staff member leaves, even their phone. But that's where a mobile device policy comes into play. But it also determines what they're allowed to have on their phone for private confidential data from your organization, right? And then obviously we're really emphasizing multi-factor authentication. No person should enter any software without it now. That is a simple cyber hygiene best practice that everyone should follow. When I'm doing my banking, I'm so happy I'm using MFA because then I'm not freaking out about, is my money still there? Has someone compromised my account? Do I have issues that I have to double check every time I'm using my banking, right? Forget about your accounts for your organization where you're issuing invoices, you're issuing checks, payments, you're receiving payments. MFA has to be a critical point of your business use for every software you're using and every staff member using it. So implementing that and enforcing that so that everyone uses it. And that just puts your mind at ease with so many levels of security issues just from that step alone. And using an authenticator app. So Microsoft is one of them, using that so you're having that proper application verifying proper access for the right person at the right time for the right use. And passwords still matter. That is one of the number 2 compromises in cyber breaches today is compromised passwords. It means my password was stolen from my Facebook account and is now used inside of my work account because I'm using the same password. And then I'm accessing all the financial records because I have access to the financial records in my organization. So it's a domino effect as well. Again, because we use cloud services, everything is interconnected. There's no barriers. There's no brick and mortar that's separating anything. That's why I mean by this is an identity crisis. If I have access to an account in an organization and my account gets compromised and an unauthorized user is accessing it and gets into those financial records, identity crisis has begun. It is not me. It is an unauthorized user accessing confidential documents, financial records, all of it. So we have to figure out the best practices that you can follow, and that is MFA, sure that they're not duplicated, shared, and they're stored safely, right? Using a password manager or using whatever management you're using, follow it so that the organization is following it as a whole, whatever that is, but making sure that you're all on the same page so everyone feels like they can do this and it's not insurmountable. You have to vet your third-party vendors as well. When you're using, let's say, even think about Microsoft, and Microsoft as a tool, you're using all of their services. In comes Copilot, and it's data scraping. But if you don't have the right license, then you're using it and it's putting you in harm's way. And so then how do you prevent that? So you have to know what these third-party vendors are using your accounts for, your data, how they're storing it, how they're sharing it, or how they're saving it, right? Because if they get compromised in a breach, that means you're going to be compromised if they have access to you. And that has been evident over the years of various different compromises and cyber breaches over the last few years of one software company getting compromised and affecting all of the other clientele. So it doesn't mean just because you're a small organization, it won't happen to you. It will happen to you even more so because if you're not vetting them properly to understand how they protect your data, then you're going to be at risk. So it's just another layer of you looking at how to protect your organization. And then how are you going to reduce uncertainty in your staff? I can promise you, your staff are feeling really uncertain right now on a level of overwhelmed and burdened. So what will you do as a leader? Your staff have to look at this and feel comfortable and confident. How are they navigating cybersecurity concerns, AI concerns? So you as an organization have to train them, give them the opportunity to get on the same page, to be trained, give them the opportunity to feel like they're a united front. You're all in this together so that you can face that together as an organization in your monthly team meetings, bring it up as a topic, line item. What are you talking about this week? And sharing openly so that everyone can go, yeah, me too, me too, me too. Because you'll be surprised. Just because you're not necessarily mentioning it doesn't mean they don't feel it. And the uncertainty is incredible right now. So the way you onboard staff, incredibly important. that giving them tools and equipping them with that security mindset is really important right from the get-go. And then giving them that monthly awareness training on any topic that you deem that your team needs to be able to shift and pivot and be able to move in the right direction, so that you can be giving them the confidence to be able to do their job properly. If you think they're confident, I can assure you they're not. It's going to be overwhelming for them to even probably put a finger on how overwhelmed they are. So take the lead on that to let them know this is how you're going to guide them to navigate this, and take away the uncertainty, because that's going to make them really underconfident, underperform, and overwhelmed. And this AI bombardment is going to be the sure thing that does it. So just look that right in the face and face it. And again, you create an AI policy, share it with the team, talk about it at a staff meeting, bring everybody on the same page. It's okay if it changes in 2 months based on the way that software changes. Face it head on, going, okay, team, policy has to change now because this software changed and it doesn't work for us this way anymore. So we're going to do it this way. It's okay to have that open conversation, to change and pivot the way you need to pivot. And it takes less effort when you're all on the ship going in the same direction, and you just pivot slowly and surely, because you're going, we see our eye on the prize. This is shifted. We have to shift. And it doesn't take a lot of resources, and it doesn't take a lot of money and time if you are aware that you have to shift. Okay, be open to it. Be ready, seeing it. It is changing. We can change with it, but start with one set of policies that everybody can get behind and understand. Train them on it, and then you pivot and let them know we're going to have to pivot. We just will. Be ready for it. No one's at fault for it, but let's be ready. Don't blame, don't shame, but no, this is what they're going to feel. Because if they can't figure out how to pivot and shift, they're going to feel really uncomfortable. And I mean, that is really where we're at right now, is that thank goodness for all this new technology, but we as humans don't change that quickly. So now we're having to change. But what do we believe, and what do we understand, and how do we learn it, and what should we learn? Too much. It's way too much. So if you as a leader narrow it down to what they should focus on, what they need to understand by setting up in a policy, it takes away a lot of other noise that they think they maybe should know. And what if they don't know, and will they get in trouble if they don't know it? Tell them what they should know, and then direct them on that and that alone. And then the other noise can drop, because again, there's a lot of AI noise, a lot of cybersecurity noise, and a lot of threat noise. And it's hard to know which one they should be on guard against. So protect them, guide them, protect your organization in those ways so that you can navigate that as a team. And then just know it's change management. That's what this is, right? Following it, like whatever principles you want to follow. ADKAR is one of them: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. But knowing they're not at fault because they can't adjust to change. It's the fact that it's just hard to change. So how do you help them change with this whole level of technology that's coming like as a fire hose at them? Forget about just the software, the concepts too, right? So it's a lot for them to take in. Doesn't matter what level they're at, what skill set they have, what their role is. They love doing what they do. That's why they're there. Give them the tools to be able to do this so they can do it well. And then when it comes to the communication process and the protocols you have in your organization, I would say one of the, regardless of what changes over the next few months and year, tell and lead your team to understand how to verify anything that's incoming. So there's no more trust when it comes to digital messages, because what would you think that there should be to trust? Anybody can be anybody now. Anybody can have anybody's email address. Anybody can use anybody's logo. Anybody can use anybody's name. So now that we know that we can be anybody, and we have a true identity crisis because someone can just take over my identity and send any communication through any means, we have to tell our staff how to verify. So what is your verification method? What is your code word so that they can say, oh, you want those financial records? Can you just tell me, what is that code word again that we've agreed upon? Takes away a lot of doubt. takes away a lot of confusion if your staff have verification processes that you have put in place for them to follow. Then they don't have to feel scared or worried they're doing something wrong. Because again, many staff have been duped by, oh, this vendor sent me an invoice, I'm going to pay it, finding out it's not the vendor. It was a hacker who scammed them through the whole invoicing process. An employee saying, oh, I need to change my banking information, and the financial controller changing the financial records to banking information for that employee, only to find out it wasn't that employee, it was a hacker. So it doesn't matter the size of organization, it's the process and how you're verifying it. So a few last things is, if you don't have the technology, that's okay, you're not alone. But Smart Dolphins can also help with any technology gaps you would have that you think you need to put in place now, right? So whether you need to put in advanced endpoint management, if you don't understand that, you can ask them what that is. Phishing resistant multi-factor authentication. And then maybe you need cyber insurance for your organization and your regulation and your compliance. They can help with that. So you don't have to have all the resources or the expertise in-house. You can go find it. And then also Smart Dolphins can give you recommendations if you need anything else. So I have a question for you. So Matt can put up a poll here. And based on where you're at this year, are you adding any tools or services to your budget this year in 2025? Have you given thought to that as we are at June 2025? Are you adding any tools or services to your cybersecurity budget?
So far I've gotten one yes and one no. Oh. New router.
Awesome.
A security subscription.
Awesome.
A couple more yeses and nos. Maybe.
Yeah.
I got a training.
Good. Good.
So yeah, I got 3 no's, 2 yeses. Password manager.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Excellent. Now, the reason I ask you this is because a couple of things that most organizations aren't aware of is, one is you're now you're a security organization, because if you have software, you have to have security, right? Even automotive organizations are using software. So you're a security company. So how are you navigating that? It costs money. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes, right? So we have to look at this differently as we run our business. We have to look at it as a budget line item. And again, it's up to you what that budget line item is. Again, I'm really neutral here when it comes to that, because you base it on your own resources, but knowing if you can look out at your next year and go, we have to budget, what should we tackle that could be most feasible for us to be able to reach over this next year? So as one of you said, password manager, navigating that one particular resource and putting a budget line item in there is an excellent step. It's not a high cost, but it is a cost. And it takes training and effort and buy-in, and it takes time, but it's still a cost. And then knowing that every year you're going to have a line item, it will be a different line item of costs, but it will still be a line item. So just be prepared for that, to know it's not going to be a surprise. And if you were to ask any other organization, they would say, yeah, we have a budget and we have to continually add to that budget. It's just the way it is. So I just wanted to be able to be really frank with you about that. Don't be surprised by the cost that it is. And if it increase, or you have to continually add new ones, like you say, oh, that one's gone, now you have to add another one. It's just the way it is in terms of the way we do business. So another thing I've been asked is, well, like, let's say you have a cyber incident, how do you navigate that, right? Well, I would say we prepare with an incident response plan. If you were to say, how do we get ahead of that so we navigate a cyber incident smoothly? Here's some top 3 tips. IR plans, incident response plans, are free. There's templates online. You can take about 2 weeks to do it. It doesn't, maybe 10 hours to fill it out. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it takes one person to be able to resource out to put that together. But it's a document. That's all it is. But what I would say is the most important thing is to fill out that communication plan inside of that incident response plan. That is one of the most critical pieces of navigating any issue you might have as a cyber incident or an IT outage or whatever, and print it off. So let's say you need to have everybody who would be on the call list of who needs to be notified that you have an outage of some sort. Same thing. You have it printed out so everyone has that in their hand so they have those numbers. But print out your communication plan so everyone knows what to follow. That will make anything smooth regardless of how it comes, because you're never going to know how you're going to have an incident. You're never going to know. But the best way to be prepared is to go, how will we navigate that? And your communication plan is one of the best ways to be able to start. So I would say start with that, and then you can at least be somewhat ready for, the if, not when. Not the if, like you're going to be prepared for the when, not the if. Sorry. So another question. What actions from today's session will you be able to take? It's a poll, so Matt will pop that up for you. I'll give you a few seconds to be able to answer that. My encouragement to you is that at least take one of them to be able to take and run with and implement.